You know what one of my issues is when making CBT nuggets? I always have to resist the urge on every nugget of a course, typically, to say, this nugget is hugely important. It's just so funny. Every nugget of this course is hugely important. So I'm not going to say it, all right? I won't say it. Let's talk about managing configurations on the Juniper devices. You'll notice something really quick on your Juniper device. We'll go and say configure, and we'll say edit system, and we'll say set host name, and I'll say Juniper device 1, and then we'll say exit, exit, and we see that the configuration has been changed but not committed. So right away, we can kind of intuitively sense that something pretty unique's going on here. What's happening is there is indeed an active configuration, and that's our official terminology for this. The active configuration on the device is how the device boots up, and it's the configuration that we are currently working with, that's currently active. What we did was we created together in this nugget thus far what is called a candidate configuration. Candidate. All right, great. So the candidate configuration is what we did here. So I can say now, all right, wait a minute, we don't want to exit with the uncommitted change. It gives us a chance to undo that. So I can say, wait a minute, no, I don't want to exit with the uncommitted change. And we, of course, have the ability to commit that change. So think about this. When we are manipulating the configuration, when we go in and we configure, we are manipulating that candidate configuration. When we run our commit statement, we are, of course, creating an updated or a new active configuration on the device. So changes don't take effect immediately. This would literally allow multiple users to be working on different parts of a configuration. This is the candidate config they're working with, and then apply that configuration to the device so that that configuration is an active configuration. Something else that's kind of neat about this is that's where the error checking occurs. So you're doing a candidate configuration manipulation, you go to commit that config and there's problems, that's when the operating system can notify you that you have particular syntax problems. All right, so here I have my candidate configuration. We did a hostname manipulation, and we know in order to make that the active configuration, we do our commit statement. But what's really exciting too with the June OS operating system is that we have the rollback command. The rollback command allows you to go back to some other active configuration. So you can literally roll back. You specify X where X is a particular numbered previous configuration. The software saves a maximum of 50 configurations. Roll back 0, if you were to say that, is going back to your current active configuration. But if you said like roll back 3, you would go back 3 previously active configurations. Now, I said something a moment ago that might give you reason for concern, and that is bringing up the fact that multiple engineers in your organization could be configuring the same Juniper device. And we, of course, can commit our configurations and have the configuration altered. What if you want to make sure this does not happen? Well, one thing that you could do is you could do what's called exclusive configuration of the device. So I'm going to say configure exclusive this time. And we go into our edit mode, and notice it warns us. It says, look, Any uncommitted changes that you have are going to be discarded on exit. So if I went in here and said edit system and I said set host name to test1 and then I said exit and then exit again, it says, wait a minute. You're in a situation where you are going to permanently lose these configuration changes that you made. You were in an exclusive configuration mode. No one else could make changes to this device's configuration, and if you leave now, they are gone. So do we want to discard the uncommitted changes? I could say yes, and we do not manipulate the candidate or the active configuration here. Everything's just gone that we were working with. This is a side effect, if you will, of locking down the configuration to ourselves and making it exclusive. And there's another option in addition to the exclusive configuration. It's called a private configuration. So you could say configure private. Once again, it tells you anything you don't commit is going to be tossed on an exit. But think about this. It's a private config you're making on this device, so it won't be reflected in other commits around you. And think of a nice flip side to this. You could go into your private config, you could make some changes, and then you could do rollback 0, and you wouldn't impact at all the settings that are being made around you. So it's a nice way for you to have your own little touch on the configuration, allow others to be configuring other areas of the particular device at the same time. A nice, cool, kind of middle of the road thing between everybody can be configuring the device or just you can be configuring the device. Configure private is a nice middle ground approach. Now let's elaborate more on the configuration itself. So I'll say configure here, and I've alluded to this in other nuggets, but I really want to hammer this point home to you now. What we are working with is actually a hierarchical configuration. Notice when we do configure, we have this prompt that says, okay, we're in edit mode. But then I can say edit system, and now we're in the system part of the hierarchical configuration. Think of it like a file system. That's really how it works. So once I'm under the edit system, I could do something like set services, web management, HTTP, port 8080. And we have made that configuration change within the system part of the hierarchy. If you do a show services command, you will see that's shown hierarchical. So we can see the configuration we made as part of that hierarchical configuration. Now, when we do an exit, notice we're leaving the system portion of that particular hierarchy. So we can go deeper and deeper into the hierarchy. So watch, I'll do edit protocols. Okay, we're in the protocols portion of the hierarchy. Now I can say edit OSPF, for instance. Now we're in the OSPF subfolder, if you want to think of it like a file system part of the protocols. As you might guess, we're going to need some shortcuts here or we'd quickly drive ourselves crazy. For instance, we can say up and we'll go one level up. Notice we left the OSPF protocols area and now we're in the edit protocols area. You can even specify a number after the up command. Watch this. I'll do edit OSPF and now I'll say up 2. And so we'll go all the way up 2 levels right back to the initial edit mode of the hierarchy. You could even do a really cool shortcut of top. Watch this. So I'll do edit protocols OSPF. We go sweeping down 2 levels deep. And now I'll just say top. And we go all the way back to the top of the configuration hierarchy. Watch this. You can even get fancy by saying what you'd like to do after that. Watch. So I'll go edit Oh, and by the way, instead of typing this over again, why don't I just use my up arrow on the keyboard? So it'll recall from the command history for me, edit protocols OSPF, and we'll go deep into that hierarchy. And now what I'll do is I'll say top, but then I'll say I want to do a show system services. So it'll say, okay, Anthony, we'll bring you all the way to the top of the configuration. And then when we're done bringing you to the top of the configuration, we'll issue that show system services command that you wanted to view. I like it. Another thing that you can do by way of shortcut is get completely out of the hierarchy. So let's say we were deep in the hierarchy, and we'll recall our edit protocols OSPF. So notice we're in the edit protocols OSPF area. And I think what happened there was I hit a carriage return, so we got a little syntax error. No big deal though. I'm confirmed that we are in the edit protocols OSPF area of the hierarchy. And now what I'm going to say is exit, but I'm going to say, by the way, exit configuration mode. So this is a great way for us to not do exit, exit, exit again and again and again, as I've actually demonstrated in other videos. So there we go. It says, okay, look, we've not committed anything, but we have gone from configuration mode. So we'd need to go back in and do a commit if we were interested in that. In our case, we didn't change anything, so we could care less about the commit. We were just practicing moving around the configuration hierarchy. Now remember, the two commands that are fundamental to our manipulation of the configuration are set and delete. So we could go in and we could say edit system services, for example, and I could say set FTP in order to enable that service. Or if I want to revert that service back to its defaults, I would say delete FTP. So set and delete are key commands. You even have the ability to do wildcard deleting. So I could say top to go to the top of the configuration here, and I could say wildcard delete, and maybe it's interfaces. I want to go in and I want to delete the settings under a series of interfaces all at one fell swoop. So wildcard delete would give you that potential configuration manipulation. In addition to deleting configuration statements, we can also use the deactivate command to cause that specified portion of the configuration hierarchy to be ignored while you retain your original configuration. You could undo this, of course, with the activate command in order to place the configuration back into effect. In fact, there's a lot that you could do from a time-saving perspective when you are working with these configurations. Let me just do a question mark here, and we see that we could annotate. So we could put in a comment as we're making a configuration change. We could copy the configuration elements from one area to another. Maybe you've got an interface just perfect and you want to copy those settings to another interface. I mentioned activation and deactivation is possible. We talked about delete. You could replace anywhere one particular string comes up in the configurations. You could replace. Notice there's our rollback that we spoke of earlier. So quite a few excellent features for helping you be efficient when you are making a lot of configuration changes to your Juniper device. Now, of course, we can't forget the importance of commit. Remember, a lot of times it's going to be easy potentially when we first start working with our Juniper devices to use our set commands beautifully, but then not make that configuration active with the commit. One of my favorite things to do is a commit check. So this will not do the commit, it'll just give us that syntax checking that we love so much. So an example of this would be real simply, I could say edit system, and then I could say set host name, and we'll just do June 1. And then I exit, and then I realize, all right, I've made some interface changes, I've done some other changes. I would love to make sure that we are good. And so we do a commit check. This is going to give us that syntax checking, and it will, in this case, say, look, you got no problem. If you were to do a commit, if we know that now, that it would work beautifully. There's another cool thing you can do, and that is a commit confirmed. What this will do is it'll allow you to set a system timer. And during that timer, it'll expect to see another commit. If your second commit doesn't come within that timeout value, then a rollback will be automatically performed by the device. It'll do a rollback, one, and then a commit. The beauty of this is guarding against you locking yourself out. So you're making changes remotely on the device, and you say, okay, look, I need to do a commit confirmed. And if you don't specify a time interval, it's going to go ahead and do a default for you. And now it's set a timer. It will in a second here once it's done, and it'll set this timer in which you better be able to do another commit within that time. And look at that. It says, all right, commit confirmed will be automatically rolled back in 10 minutes unless confirmed commit is complete. And now we've got this timer running. Pretty cool. So it will roll us back if we don't do another commit. Pretty cool. You could also do a scheduled commit. So you could go in and you could do commit, and then you could say at, and you could specify the time at which you want your particular commit activated. You could do a log entry for your commit, and that's the comment feature. So you would say commit comment, and you could go ahead and provide the particular message that you are interested in providing. This is a great one. You could do commit and quit. What a nice time saver. So it's going to do the commit, and it's going to get you out of the configuration mode all in one fell swoop. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that because we have this timer that's running, and we'll go ahead and take care of that right now by saying, okay, commit and quit. So that's the second commit that this particular operating system was looking for, and now we've taken care of that commit confirmed that we set up in a moment ago in this demonstration. Now, something else that you're going to want to be able to do is comparisons. Watch this. So I'll go and configure our device once again. We'll go into the edit system. We'll say the set hostname command. Such a great way to play with configurations. I'll say June 2. And what I'll do now is show, and I'll do a pipe compare. And it says, okay, we have the June 1 in the active configuration, and we have the June 2 in our candidate configuration. You could even do this to compare against active and rollback configurations. You would do that in the operational mode. So I'll say exit, exit. I'll say, yes, I want to leave without committing those changes. And I could say show, configuration, compare, and then we could specify a particular rollback. So it will say, okay, here is what's going on, and here is what we could roll back to as far as a rollback to command. So great ways in which to view the configuration changes that you have been working with. And of course, the rollback command that I mentioned earlier is how you can roll back to a particular configuration. Remember when you roll back, remember you want to roll back and then commit. We can't forget the importance of committing configurations. Wow, so much to look at. How about taking a configuration and saving it? Absolutely, you can do this. So we go into configuration, and we can issue the save command. So you can take your configuration and you can save it to some remote storage location for safety. You can load that configuration from a remote location as well. So we can save configs off the device, we can load configs onto the device. And notice one of the commands that we saw was the factory default, which is tucked right inside of our Juniper device, obviously. And the last thing that I want to share with you when it comes to configurations and really getting the most out of our Juniper device is a nice little feature called the run command. It allows us to run particular executable operational commands while we're in configuration mode. So maybe we've made some changes and then we realize, wait, we need to test something. And a great example of that would be ping. So right in the configuration mode, we can run our ping command with all of its potential options without having to leave that configuration mode that we're in. So we'll be using the run command many times as we're working with our Juniper device configurations, should we need to execute something right on the spot. So another nugget that is so action-packed, you might want to watch it a few times. So much important information involving the configuration hierarchy, how we navigate it, the configure exclusive option, private option, the active configuration, comparing things, the rollback capability, saving configuration files, loading them. Lots of information that we're going to need to be successful in production Juniper environments and, of course, successful in certification exam environments as well. I sure hope this nugget was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.